You have one? our meeting to order. We have 6 trustees present, so we have quorum. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance to the American and Texas flags. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Get the chair. I just wanted to run. We didn't have anyone sign up for public forum today, so we'll be going into closed session as authorized by Section 551.076 of the Texas Government Code. We will have a discussion regarding school safety. Items for action. A, safety, consider approval of School Resource Officer Program Interlocal Agreement between San Marcos CISD, the City of San Marcos, acting by and through the San Marcos Police Department. Do I hear a motion? Or yes?
Yeah. I move that we approve the proposal for the San Marcos, the interlocal agreement between the police department, the city, and the school district as presented in closed session.
As discussed in closed session. I hear a second.
I'll second.
Ms. Villalpando will second. Any discussion or questions? We'll move on to vote. All in favor, raise your hand. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 0 opposed. Operations, consider.
I want him to
Introduce.
their chief sandwich.
Would you like to speak?
Madam President, Board, I would like to ask Sergeant Dan Royston to come forward, since he is going to be the supervising sergeant over the school resource officers. I think it's appropriate that you all get to know him.
I promise I won't talk as long as I did this afternoon.
That's right.
My name's Dan Royston. I've been a policeman here at the City of San Marcos for
Royston?
18 years, and I've just taken over our School Resource Officer Program and the Mental Health Unit, and I'm really looking forward to this new endeavor. I've got, we're really going to drive forward. We're very solid right now, and we're going to be doing some great things. Call me 24/7 whenever you need me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Royston.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Move on to operations. Consider approval of awarded contracts for fine arts supplies and support services.
I don't have a presentation. If you have any questions on this RFP, I'll be happy to answer.
Anyone? Yes, Mr. Arredondo?
Thank you, Ms. Cantu. Mr. Doyle, is this a follow-up to the presentation that Mr. Underwood and y'all, I guess, discussed several months ago about like additional services for students, or what are
Correct,
these
yes, sir.
contracted services?
Yes, sir. Contracted services regarding fine arts and materials, whatnot. So what we're working on the procurement side is making sure our procurement processes are done correctly, where when we need to obtain the service, the vendor has already been selected through our RFP process. We're making sure that we're meeting procurement rules and laws. So we're being upfront before we're told that we need the service, and then do that RFP process.
Anyone else have a question?
Ms. Cantu?
Dr. Salmi?
Do we need a motion to move that we approve the budgetary considerations presented in the agenda, in the board book for today?
Yes. Are you making the motion?
Yes.
Who wants to second? Ms. Villalpando? Motion made by Dr. Salmi, seconded by Ms. Villalpando. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 0 opposed. Thank you. Mr. Doyle. Consideration and possible action to determine the construction delivery method providing the best value for the new administration office project, and authorize the superintendent to take all action for procurement pursuant to the law and board policy.
Good evening, Madam President, Board, Dr. Cardona. Again, like Mr. Doyle, I'm here to answer any questions that you may have on the delivery method for the new building. I would like to provide just a little bit of information on where we are headed in regards to the background and the administration, and that's been working with the design team on the new administration office. Considered a delivery method, and for this particular project, being that it's a new build and renovation, not very large in size, the team recommended that the determination be a competitive sealed proposal method. We believe that this provides the best value for the district in a number of ways. So obviously we recommend that the board take action to determine that the use of a competitive sealed proposal construction delivery method provides the best value for this administration building. And if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them for you.
I have a
Yes, ma'am.
question. Can you please tell me what that means, a competitive sealed proposal method?
Yes, ma'am. So we will, you gonna step in too, Mike? Okay. So we will do, for instance, this Wednesday, we've got a meeting coming up. Mr. Doyle will be in that. And we will formulate a RFP, which is a request for proposals. And we will send this out to bid. They will submit their qualifications, they being general contractors. We'll send their qualifications. There will be a review committee that will go over the individual folks that have sent bids out. One advantage we do have with this type of delivery is we have the option of a question and answer on various parts of the proposal from individual general contractors. And then from there, we're able to choose. Being it that way, and Mike, you can help me out a little bit with this, but we are able to have a little bit more negotiation power in regards to our general contractor, our subcontractors, and things like that. So that's basically what a CSP is. We're going to go out with an RFP with all of our criteria in the building on it. They will submit their qualifications per that criteria, and they will submit a bid of what that job would cost. We as a team will review that, and we would choose the construction company that we want to present and vote on.
Can you tell me who's on the review committee for that? Who comprises the review of those contractors?
So I can tell you that 3 of us are in this room. I don't know if there'll be any more. Myself, Mr. Sandoval, and Mr. Doyle will be on that committee. And we may have a couple more after we convene on Wednesday afternoon. We meet at 2:30 Wednesday.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Viapando, you had a question?
Yes, how does this change where we were before? I mean, we were waiting for prices, I think, to level off and with Centec. And where does Centec fit in on all this? I don't know.
So Stantec has actually reached out to, what's the name of that company, Mr. Sandoval? Vermilion, who has been monitoring the cost of materials. They have reached out to Vermilion almost on a weekly basis. So as we sit right now, materials have leveled off. They continue to reach out to Vermilion. They continue to give us weekly analysis after they talk with them and let us know where the costs are. Again, after the last few weekly meetings, our costs at this time, they have leveled out. I don't know that they'll drop with, supply and what have you becoming more available, but they have leveled off. So Stantec is in touch with Vermilion, who's in touch with us in regards to the supply and the cost of those supplies and the availability.
Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Redondo?
I have a motion, Ms. Cantu, if there are no other questions from my colleagues.
No further questions? We're ready for a motion.
Good deal. I move that the board select competitive sealed proposals as the construction delivery method which will provide the best value for the new central administration project, and authorize the superintendent to take all action as required by board policy and state law, and present a proposed ranking on the selection of a contractor to the board for later action.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second the motion.
Ms. Viapando seconds. Any further questions or discussion?
We're good?
Ready for the vote?
No, I have a question.
Oh, you have a
Sorry.
question?
Yeah, so in previous conversations in which we've discussed bond projects, facilities renovations, several years ago, I asked that the staff directly reach out to individuals. We did this during the 2017 bond project when we selected architects. So for me personally, I know we post on the RFP portal that the ISD uses, kind of the clearinghouse service. If we could contact Stokes Construction and Wood and Thomason Construction as well. Those are two local, regional general contractors. I'm not saying that we select them, but if we can just say like, hey, there's an RFP out, if you want to submit a response, you can, whatever, right? But obviously it's fair game to anybody.
So on BidNet Direct, we're able to, when we post that bid, we're able to email vendors. So we can do that.
Cool. Thank you.
Any further question or discussion? We're ready for the vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. 3, 5, 6, 6 vote, 0 opposed. And that takes care of the operation items we had on our agenda. We can move on to agenda preparation for August 15th, 2022, regular scheduled meeting. So, start at number?
Yes, Ms. Cantu, I apologize. I just had one last question regarding that last item. Obviously, this has been a months-long process to get here. Mr. Sandoval, I know at one point in time we approved a lease agreement on the Euland Road or Mill Street property. I don't need that information tonight, but my question at a future meeting is, what does that lease look like? What is the tentative timeline on the new central administration facility? And when do we need to talk about lease renewals?
Right.
Month-to-month arrangements, whatever that looks like. Again, I don't need that tonight.
Okay.
but just-
We'll get that ready. So so like Richard was saying, Mr. Duval was saying, this Wednesday, we have a meeting with Stantec and Mr. Doyle to develop the RFP. We expect that in the next 2 weeks, we'll be posting that. We'll give them about 2-3 weeks for them to respond. We have to give them 10 days from the day that we post it, right? 10 days from the first day that we posted in the Sunday newspaper. But we'll get them evaluated, and hopefully by the September meeting, we'll be giving y'all something to look at. And at that time, we'll give you some information on timeline, because part of that responses that we'll get back will be schedules, right? When they expect they can get this project done, and then we'll sort of align that with the Mill Street lease.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Cardona, do you want to begin the review for the regular meeting?
Yes, ma'am. Madam President, members of the board, good evening. So item 5, superintendent's report. We will have an update. I will present on our journey so far for the Holsworth Center. That's helping us work on our leadership pipeline definition, what it means to be a leader at all levels in San Marcos, and then specifically, what does that do for us building the capacity of our principals, and in our principals building the capacity of their assistant principals and their teachers. So just a brief, 5 to 7 minute snapshot of what we've done and then where we're heading and who's been involved in the process. We also are going to have a representative from the National Center for Urban School Transformation, NCUST, which is a consulting firm that was doing the equity audit presentation. So they will have a presentation on their updates for the schools that they surveyed and recommendations that they made moving forward under that superintendent's report. And then item 6, reports and information items. Mr. Sandoval will give an operations update. Item B, C will be Mrs. Garcia or Mr. Doyle giving the quarterly investment report and annual investment report update. Mr. Sanders will give the academic update. We will receive our ratings by the 15th, so we should have something for y'all for that board meeting that evening. It may be a rough sketch, but we should have that information. And then Mr. Mitchell will give a human resources update of where we're at from the perspective of hiring and moving forward. Item 7, closed session is authorized by sections 551.082, 551.071, and 551.074 of the Texas Government Code. We will have 7A, level 3 grievance of Elizabeth E. Rodriguez, and we'll get that packet of information to y'all as soon as possible. Item 7B, discussion regarding rescission of prior board action to propose the termination of Amato Chapa's employment contract. We will have that discussion in closed session. And item 7C, discussion of school safety by our Director of Health and Safety, Mr. Wozniak. He will present. Then item 8, the board will reconvene in open session to take action if necessary on the items discussed in closed session. For items A and B, we will not take any action item on the discussion of school safety. Item 9, approval of consent agenda items, approval of the minutes for the regular scheduled board meeting on June 20th, 2022, the board meeting on July 25th, 2022, and board meeting on August 1st, 2022. Item 10, items for action. We did break up, Ms. Gunther and I broke the items for action up just to make it easier by department, so we'll know who's to report. So item A, board. A1, discussion and possible action on reactivating the Citizens Advisory Committee to discuss redistricting into 7 single-member districts. Item 8, A2, discussion and possible action to revise the board operating procedures. Item A3, discussion and possible action to name 2 school members to the intergovernmental group, which is a group that we were participating in prior to COVID, and I think they're starting back up again.
Should that be school board members?
Yes.
Okay.
Item B, academics. B1, consider approval of 2022-2023 Student Code of Conduct. I would encourage the board members to read their 470 pages of local policy update 119, because that will be reflected in the Student Code of Conduct. Item B2, consider approval of grading guidelines. Mr. Sanders will present that. Item C1, local policy manual update 119, which I previously referenced. Item 10D1, consider adoption of resolution to identify hazardous conditions within 2 miles of a school campus. This is something we go through every year where we have, for our bus routes and transportation, we have to identify certain routes. And just so that the public knows, the more the city improves sidewalks and other things, bicycles, it actually hurts the school district in terms of claiming hazardous route information. So it's good for one, but it does hurt us in some ways. Item E, finance. E1, consider acceptance of the certified appraisal rules for the San Marcos Consolidated Independent School District. We will have that presentation, Mr. Doyle and Ms. Garcia. Item E2, acceptance of the tax rate and voter approval tax rate for the tax year 2022 of the San Marcos Consolidated Independent School District. Again, Mr. Doyle and Mrs. Garcia. Item E3, consider ordinance setting the 2022 tax rate. Item E4, consider agreement for the purchase of attendance credits from the state. And the reason why we're doing this is because we've talked about recapture and our rising property values, so there are things that we have to do, and this is one we have done previously, is purchase attendance credits so that we don't actually send money back to the state. Item E5, consider approval of budget amendments. We have several. And Madam President, that is all for that we have, administration has for the
Okay.
August board meeting.
At this time, if you have any other items that you want added to this agenda, Mr. Arredondo, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Ms. Cantu. Ms. Cantu, members of the board, I'd spoken about this with Dr. Cardona prior to the agenda submission deadline. And it was my understanding that he had talked to staff about this. Individually, I'm interested in placing an item on the August 15th agenda to provide a stipend for every ISD employee who is required to complete the Reading Academy's training. I think whether it was at like TASB, SLI, or even in the media, we've heard about the significant number of hours that these reading academies have required for teachers off of contract time, not during in-service, but on their personal unpaid time, have had to commit to complete the reading academies. And I thank all of the staff members who've already completed it. And so I guess the parameters of this incentive dollar amount to be determined by the board would be for both the employees who've completed the reading academies and those who have yet to complete them but would receive upon completion.
And how many hours does it take to complete this reading academy? Does anyone have a number?
It's roughly about 60 hours,
60 hours?
but there have been some changes made in the last year. So they're revamping the process. So now all teachers, even if they're at the K-3 level, they're not required to complete a reading academy. If, for example, in some of our schools where they're departmentalized elementary, we could get a waiver so that the teacher does not have to take the reading academy. Also, if a teacher shows that they're proficient in certain aspects of the science of reading, they can take an assessment that would also exempt them from having to complete all the modules. But when it first originated, it was about 60 hours that was required for them to have to complete.
So that requirement has decreased?
Yes, it has decreased. It's decreased because they've eliminated some of the modules and some of the people who are not required to take it.
Mr. Redondo?
Thank you, Ms. Cantu. Mr. Sanders, in your professional opinion, whether you've tested out of the reading academies or sought a waiver, do you believe that the reading academies are a worthwhile tool for teachers, or I guess process for teachers to go through?
The process, yes, because it aligns to what the science of reading. So that training itself, where modifications are needed, I think to the point of the amount of hours and the time that is required to complete it, I think we can be more strategic in trying to figure out how to get our teachers through the process so it's not so overwhelming. But it is a good training that's required, and I do think we need to continue that.
Very cool. I just have one quick statement. I know Trustee Mejia has her hand raised. I guess individually, as we have this conversation, and obviously a more robust conversation on the 15th, is I'm comfortable moving forward with some type of incentive. And, you know, if a teacher completes it when they, you know, chose to participate in the Reading Academy, complete the training versus testing out, you know, I want to incentivize that, right? If it's a worthwhile training for them to participate in, if it, you know, compensates the employees who had to spend the 60 hours already, you know, is it, you know, kind of an issue that now that it's not 60 hours for employees completing it today? Yeah, but I can't do anything about that. But anyway, so for me personally, I'm still interested in the stipend to be received by employees upon completion, if they have not completed it. But
And your start time? For anyone who completes it this academic year?
well, I mean, I think it's everyone who's been required to, right?
So how many people would that include?
So that would go back, I believe the first year was 2021, 2022. And so the way it's set up, we have a couple of different cohorts going on. So we have had cohorts that have finished, and now we have a new cohort that is about to start, and there are some people who are in the middle of theirs. But I can show you during our next meeting exactly how many people are at what stage in completion.
Are we talking about hundreds of people?
So we're,
Are we talking
I
about?
don't know the exact number, but we are talking all of our elementary teachers who teach K-3.
So bring us those numbers so we,
Okay.
that has a determination on whether or not we'd give the incentive and how much of an incentive. Ms. Mejia?
I think we kind of touched on it, but I just wanted to know, like, when is this assigned to them and how long is the completion of this program? You said 60 hours, but is that, do they have like a deadline throughout, you know, the end of the year or so?
So when it was first approved back in 2021, teachers were told at that time, as well as administrators, because what, the way it's divided up is you have a year to complete the assessment, but if you don't complete it in the year, they have shown grace. Because originally it was said that teachers who did not complete it, they would not be allowed to teach K-3. We did not have any teachers who fell under that guideline that we were going to have to put into another grade level as a result of that. So all of our teachers who are required to complete it, they have done so. But we do have, like I said, teachers who are in the middle of it now, along with some of our administrators for completion. Since the updates have been made, I have not had a chance to see exactly how that affected the people who were already going through it. But that's something that I can have for you all for the next meeting so that you can see where everyone stands, whether they completed it or where they are now, or if a principal moved a second grade teacher who only teaches math, we can try to apply for that exemption so they wouldn't have to continue with it.
Anyone else?
Can you also provide the sort of a rough schedule for how this is getting accomplished for the staff that have to do it? If it's during their, this in August before school starts, or are they doing this after school hours, stuff like that? Thank you.
Anyone else have an item they want to submit for the August 15th regular meeting?
Ms. Cantu?
Yes,
I have a second item.
we have a second item.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Cantu. This is another conversation that I've had with Dr. Cardona. Mr. Sandoval, as we close the 2017 bond program and as we check off the items on the supplemental bond project list, the conversations that I've had with Dr. Cardona are, although a majority of our schools are substantially renovated or new, San Marcos High School, for instance, was constructed and opened in 2007. And I'm curious, as we close the most recent construction program, looking towards the future, what hardening our campuses looks like, facilities assessments, where we are with the ISD's real estate portfolio, to make sure that we're staying ahead of the curve when it comes to the entryways across our campuses. In particular, I know like Mandas Elementary School has gone through several iterations in their front entryway, but it's still just a couple of glass windows between the outside and inside of that facility. And obviously, like the entryway to Crockett Elementary School and Travis Elementary School is very different. And so individually, I'd like to see consistency. Obviously, I think that's a more significant conversation, obviously redoing entryways of schools, but I'd be interested in hearing your assessment of that, of ISD facilities in general, and to cite one of my former colleagues, Mr. Crowley, and after talking to parents and students in the athletic program, I've heard concerns about our athletic fields and is it time to re-turf them, or what does that look like? So if there's a way that we can initiate that process of, facilities assessment, I'd be interested in that. And I've had those conversations with Dr. Catalona previous to tonight. So whether that's an agenda item or not, I don't care. When it comes to us, it comes to us. But thank you.
All right. Anyone else have an item?
There is an agenda item. I thank you for saying something, actually. Thank you. There was a school safety agenda item that we were seeking legal counsel from, that we got approval from. It has to do with school safety. It's a presentation about something potentially when we want to do here at the high school as a pilot that involves a significant upgrade in the systems we currently have. So I just didn't want y'all to be caught off guard. We have the general safety, Mr. Wozniak, but we're also gonna have somebody come in and present something to y'all, but we were waiting to hear from the attorney as to whether we could actually have somebody come in and talk to y'all about that. So you just didn't want somebody showing up and then y'all are like, what is this? You didn't talk about this. And
So
it was
then
actually Mr. Arganda who
you're
prompted
going
me.
to create the item for the agenda.
Well, it just falls under school safety.
Oh, okay.
discussed under the discussion of school safety in closed session.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, we had to get clearance from that.
Okay, so, an executive session. Because I know we have to list whatever we discuss in executive session. Any other additions? I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I would request that we move back to our operating procedures, that we submit items for the agenda prior to the meeting in writing.
That's what we had
Friday,
said we would do
yeah,
by
I
noon.
think it's valuable for us to continue with that process. I hope we will. And,
Can you speak up? I couldn't hear.
sorry, I said I hope we will continue with our accepted process in our operating procedures of submitting our items for the agenda the Friday prior to the meeting, I believe, to the president and superintendent, so that they get included in this meeting list.
Thank you.
And I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded that we adjourn this meeting. It is 6:55. Thank you.
That was the second one, right?
We didn't second that?
Yeah. So Miguel was the second? Okay.